Continuing this series' expanded look at what the Age of the Ring mod provides in its factions, both those original to AOTR and expanded ones from vanilla ROTWK, it's worth noting up front again that these videos are not guides, merely faction highlights so you can see at a glance what some of the more interesting changes are, or all new features are. Needless to say, this is not an exhaustive demonstration or compendium of changes. Something important to note up front, though. In this series, sometimes you'll see oddities like abilities and powers instantly refreshing, or resource structures that produce insanely high resources. This is just a product of the mod's testing mode, which lets you change these values in-game for testing purposes, or demonstration purposes as in this series. So these changes should not be seen as accurately representing the mod and how it actually plays. In the previous episode, we covered the overhauls Age of the Ring implemented onto Isengard. Going now to the penultimate episode with AOTR's overhaul of vanilla goblins into a reimagining called the Misty Mountains, we see a much grittier version of the classic faction, and much expanded with a completely different hero roster and more units, including more monsters. As always though, let's take a moment to appreciate the art overhauls. Vanilla's spider den has been removed entirely, along with all of its spider-related units, replaced now by the wolf cairn structure and all new units. Vanilla's Fisher structure, where you get most of your monster units from, is replaced with the Troll Lair, which now has a larger assortment of monsters. There are also two new structures, the Mountain-Orc Lodge, which recruits all new sets of orc units, and the Worm Lair, which recruits overhauled fireworms and an all-new monster unit. As with so much of AOTR, upgrades are physical additions instead of just golden armor painted on as with so much of vanilla. And pre-existing units like the Cave Troll and Mountain Giant have received considerable visual overhauls, like almost everything in Age of the Ring. And Vanilla has just one banner for all units, a strange spider banner, perhaps for Shelob or the Spiders of Mirkwood, whereas AOTR now has 3 banners. But moving on to the main stuff. As we move to the Goblins, it's important to ask, just what happened to Angmar? If you saw the original What is the Age of the Ring mod video, you would have noticed Angmar is conspicuously absent from the faction roster. There are several good reasons for this. First and foremost is the developer's choice to keep to the late Third Age in the storytelling of their factions. The reason for removing Angmar is obvious. The realm of Angmar was destroyed over 1,000 years before the events of the Lord of the Rings. Furthermore, the developers have gone on record in the Discord forums many times as saying they simply did not like the way the faction was designed in many respects. I won't elaborate too much, but suffice to say, Vanilla Angmar has some frankly strange aspects, such as the Black Númenóreans, part of the King's Men, which in the books were only ever people of the South and Umbar, arch-nemeses of the Gondorians in the Wars of the South. They never had any place in the North. Otherwise, the developers' artistic grievances with the faction are manifold and won't be covered here, but for the fans of Vanilla Angmar, you may be pleased nevertheless. Vanilla Angmar has been redone as what AOTR calls an alternate faction. I covered these a bit in my original video if you want to know more. But their Angmar alternate faction just received a massive expansion in their update for patch 9.3 on April 24th, 2026, as well as their overhauled Rise of the Witch King single-player Angmar campaign, so check it out! For those interested, while Angmar is gone from the roster of main factions, various features of Angmar are transferred to certain main factions in some creative ways, such as the Shade of Wolf being changed to an original AOTR creation for Dol Guldur. More on this in the next episode. Other examples include the Avalanche power being given to Isengard, or the power to transform enemy units into wights being given to Dol Guldur, and other examples besides. All of this is to say, while the faction of Angmar is absent from the roster of main factions of AOTR, it's still alive in many other ways. This includes how it partly survives in one of AOTR's main factions, the Misty Mountains, a complete overhaul and reimagining of the original Goblins faction. Vanilla Goblins, much like Vanilla Elves, feels like a strange mix, but this time of many parts of the wild regions of Middle-earth, especially its monsters. Whereas AOTR's version lives up to its namesake. It has a strong focus on the specific region of those mountains of the north, the Misty Mountains. Gone now are some of the strange features, like a giant imprisoned within a cocoon, appropriately replaced by a troll atop a ledge now. You've also got more monsters now, an additional infantry building, the spider den is now a wolf den, you have a worm lair, the look is more gritty and less cartoonish, and the hero roster is completely different and expanded. The wild looks as intimidating as it should now. This naturally includes the realm of Angmar. While it has been a ruin for more than a millennia, AOTR has imagined it as having some disparate aspects of old, surviving as relatively minor but still dangerous threats to the free peoples of Middle-earth. Furthermore, Angmar is preserved as a sub-faction in which you can recruit a couple of units of that ancient wasteland from a permanent summonable structure, which recruits undead warriors of Arnor as well as white wolves, which are similar to vanilla Angmar's wolves, but with better stats and so are more expensive. Considering all of this, and because AOTR's faction is centered on the Misty Mountains region, especially the northern reaches, it makes sense in their reimagining of the faction to see various Angmar powers replace certain vanilla Goblins powers. These power replacements include the Frozen North land buff replacing Tainted Land, or the Fell Winter stun power replacing War Chant, or the White Winter weather power taking the place of Darkness. So it should come as no surprise that the Ruin of Angmar power replaces the Spiderling summon. One last unit from Vanilla Angmar also survives, the Snow Trolls. In Vanilla, they are an advanced cavalry unit and quite good, but stay in melee mode. But in AOTR, they get a melee and range swap with a range damage buff, doing excellent structure damage. So they've been transformed into a kind of siege unit. While they are no longer a cavalry unit, they make up for this by being able to quickly take out even elite units at range, such as these Tier 3 Iron Hills warriors. And even the staunchest of heroes like a level 10 Dane Ironfoot won't last long against these guys, and left alone, they can do serious damage to a base in very little time, so not a unit to pass up. All of these changes help to reflect the reimagining of the Misty Mountains as a wild faction out of the cold northern mountains of Middle-earth that once was connected with Angmar in ancient times. Moving on from Angmar, one of the most telling changes from Vanilla Goblins is the aesthetic or art direction. The bases and units reflect their wild nature much more than the vanilla game. And the unit roster has changed quite a bit as well. While the faction retains its spam playstyle with the basic Goblins units, other units are drastically different, along with the playstyle. Vanilla's half-troll swordsmen and spearmen are completely removed from the faction, but they are a more advanced Tier 1 unit with a unique ability for normal units. They cannot be trampled by cavalry. This can make for a pretty devastating swordsman strategy, needless to say, if your enemy has invested in too much cavalry. This kind of immunity provides incredible gameplay value for these units, but this is as far as the faction goes for infantry units. They are replaced with the mountain-orc slashers and brutes, being far more in line with the mythology. From a mechanical perspective, though, they also lean more towards advanced Tier 1 units in their stats, especially the slashers with their increased damage buff. The Tier 2 archers help the faction keep up with other factions' archers a bit better now, so that you're not reliant only on the spam archers as in vanilla. And their elite Tier 3 Gundabad Berserker Spearman unit is the cream of the crop, being automatically recruited with heavy armor and having swordsmen mixed in, with a considerable damage buff. All of these units make the faction a bit more mobile than the vanilla ones, while making them feel a bit more true to Middle-earth. Their cavalry is also completely different from vanilla, again to keep the faction in line with the mountainous frozen regions of the north as well as the mythos. Gone are the spider riders and spiderlings from vanilla goblins, such units being the haunt of places like Mirkwood. Spider Riders have a great poison damage attack at incredible range when equipped with their bows, or they can swap to melee, and Spiderlings are very fast melee with poison damage. Instead, there are Warg packs now, and Gundabad Wolf Riders out of the far north of the Misty Mountains. While the Wolf Riders don't have the melee and range swap the Spider Riders do, they do have considerable buffs, which are made even better by one of the faction's heroes, to be covered later. In this way, they feel more akin to Isengard's Warg Riders.
My wolf ain't been fed for 3 stinking days.
The heroic unit has also been changed. In vanilla, you get the Fire Drake, a very fast unit that has a considerable AoE attack and ability. In AOTR, there are Bolg's Bodyguards. These guys can debuff enemy heroes and heroic units, one of the only units in the whole game to do so, and not something possible in vanilla, making them the perfect counter to any hero strategy. One aspect of vanilla goblins which has always made the faction stand out is their monster unit roster, and AOTR's overhaul does not disappoint here. Keeping with the cave trolls of vanilla, the roster has been expanded to include giant bats, a part of the Battle of 5 Armies from The Hobbit, and more deadly is the Gundabad Stone Troll, which is similar to Mordor's attack trolls, but can now fully suit up in armor to be even more dangerous. But AOTR doesn't stop there. Vanilla's Fire Drakes have always been quite deadly, spewing fire and roasting tons of units at once, making them a bane to any army. Being young drakes, they're incredibly fast moving and are strong against pretty much anything with the exception of archers. However, they are limited to 3 per battalion, and you can have only a maximum of 2 out on the field at once, but you can easily see why. In AOTR, renamed Fireworms and fully grown, they can also spit fire at range and remove enemy leadership. The Dread Gaze power especially is a really nice touch to bring the books to life, and the ranged attack softens up the enemy before pouncing in melee. And released on April 24th, 2026, are all new mechanics not seen in BFME for the unit. They now have a new melee animation combo with the fire. The cherry on top, though, is that they even have their own sleeping animation. Talk about bringing Middle-earth to life. But even this isn't all. Now there's the legendary Cold Drake from the books, which is basically a flying dragon, doing massive splash damage. All this is to say, monster battles never looked so good. Before moving on to the heroes, let's take one more look at the spellbook, because an exciting new addition can be found in AOTR. In vanilla, you get the severely overlooked Untamed Allegiance power, something that never seems to get any use in competitive games especially. In AOTR though, you get the 3 trolls from The Hobbit. These guard a pot of trollish stew, which acts like a well and heroic statue combined. Vanilla goblins do not have a source of healing, so this is a major boon to the faction. Protect that stew. And that the trolls attack enemies makes for great distractions behind enemy lines. There's also a twist on the classic worm power, in which the worm's tunnels can have a power cast on it to permanently grant you a couple goblin battalions and what's called a cave troll destroyer, which is a more powerful version of the classic cave troll. Note that the Balrog can only be found in this faction in AOTR now, no longer also in Mordor, again more in line with the nature of this faction. The same holds true with the Dragon Strike power, being no longer in Isengard and only found in this faction. Finally, we come to the hero roster, which is unrecognizable compared to Vanilla's. In Vanilla, the roster is all original heroes created by the BFME2 developers. Every last one of these heroes has been completely replaced in AOTR. However, there are some features preserved here and there, as you'll see shortly. Vanilla's Azog is an early game hero killer who can level up troops fast while gaining the faction tons of money through all stages of a match. Gorkil the Goblin-king can plant down a skull totem anywhere on the map with a powerful buff which stacks with his leadership, affecting all non-monster units of the faction. His scorpion mount makes him quite mobile and an effective hero killer when coupled with the poison ability, and at level 10 he gets to summon 3 drakes. Shelob, the Great Spider of Mordor, can slow down the movement rate and attack rate of units, including flyers. Coupled with her fear and debuff combo, she is the support hero of the faction and unit disruptor, made deadlier by her tunneling power and poison ability. She's also notoriously difficult to kill, as the tunnel ability can be triggered anywhere on the map. A hidden and fairly incredible feature for this hero, she can traverse otherwise non-traversable terrain, and the only hero in the game able to do this. You sometimes have to click multiple times on an area to get it to work just right, but she is easily the most mobile hero other than a flying one. Then there's Drogoth the Dragon Lord. Dealing formidable splash damage, this flying hero can burn whole armies in a single click, living up to its namesake as a dragon. Now let's take a look at AOTR's heroes. You now have a formidable cavalry hero in the aptly named Golfinbull, granting great buffs to all Wolf Rider and Warg units, making the faction much better at keeping up with cavalry from other factions. Musgash is the orc from Moria who, in the books, stabs Frodo instead of the troll as in the films. He provides leadership for the Goblin and mountain-orc units and grants a passive pillage ability to surrounding troops to gain resources per kill. Urshak is a Goblin Shaman and is the support hero of the faction, debuffing and slowing down surrounding units with a rare ability to heal your troops. He can also literally freeze units in place like fleeing heroes. Lug the Mauled is an assassin for hire. Consequently, he is the faction's hero killer par excellence, debuffing enemy hero armor more than any unit in the game, a truly incredible 50%. He also has the ability to swap between ranged and melee and grants himself an incredible armor, damage, and speed buff combo, and can deal massive damage to surrounding units. Something of a legend in his own right amongst AOTR fans, it's easy to see why. Watch how fast he can take out even one of the tankiest heroes with his Headhunter hero debuff power. And if you combine this with the hero debuff of Bolg's bodyguards, no hero is safe. The Great Goblin buffs out your Goblin spam strategy in some remarkable and fun ways. The Skull Totem doesn't buff units as in vanilla, but spams them, granting you a tiny barracks at a moment's notice. He can also summon a small army of goblins while providing leadership that stacks with Mudsgashes for a formidable army-creating duo. Watch as this hero can manifest a small spam army in no time between his summon and strategically placed totems, and the totems have a small army in and of themselves to protect them, not something Vanilla's Goblin-king can do. Stack this leadership with Mudsgash's leadership and speed buff and you've got a fast-moving glass cannon army ready to strike at a moment's notice. And his treasure summon is unique in that it sometimes grants you a nice sum of money, and other times it can damage you. Of course, it works just as well on the enemy. But the chief of them all is Bolg of the North himself. Taken from the Hobbit book, Bolg is the son of Azog, who comes out of the north to avenge the death of his father at the hands of Dane Ironfoot. He unites the otherwise disparate elements of the wild in his war upon the dwarves, granting a powerful leadership to wargs, bats, and orcs alike, and he grants a huge 125% damage buff to surrounding units, making them all glass cannons. If you leave a fortress undefended, all Bolg has to do is summon his army and buff them in himself for a quick win. As you can see, AOTR's version of the faction takes elements from Vanilla's Angmar and elsewhere to create a unique take on the wild of the north of Middle-earth that stays remarkably true to the source material, while being a more intimidating and monster-filled faction than its vanilla counterpart, making for some incredibly fun battles on a grand scale. Well, this about wraps up this video. Next episode will be the last one, all about Dol Guldur, the most uniquely designed faction I have ever seen in a BFME game or mod. Don't miss this one. In the meantime, if you haven't already, why not download this amazing mod? It's fast, free, and easy. Download link is in the description. I have a great installation guide on my channel here.